For me, landscape, both its existence and one's journey through it, is a spiritual experience. And I think one's exploration of landscape, whether it's a pathway around a garden or forging an unexplored route through a virgin landscape, it's about the path, it's about the process, and the process to me is a spiritual one.
Maybe without Roger's work, Yes wouldn't have sold so many records.
When he does these paintings, it's not like he paints on here like this. This is like, you know, a wall, you know, the canvas.
That cover brought us a little bit of credibility because it was so different and unexpected, and a touch of class too. I love Roger's work.
I think what I'm trying to do in painting landscapes is to capture some of that, if you like, spiritual essence.
Hi, I'm Rick Wakeman. Those were just a few of the possible views of Roger Dean, landscape artist and philosopher. He and I have travelled along a very similar path over the course of the last 30 years. I'll always have an affinity for Roger. Not only have his paintings been incredibly important to the development of Yes as a band, but he's the only guy I know who's been in and out of the Yes camp more times than I have.
MGK presents the ultimate Yes experience. We're giving away reserved seat tickets for Yes with the Man Festival Orchestra at the Mann Center for the Performing Arts Tuesday, August 21st. Is that enough? Yes! No, we're giving away prints of the original commemorative poster we commissioned legendary Yes album cover artist Roger Dean to create. Is that enough? Yes! No. How about this? With your tickets and limited edition poster, you get an invitation for two to a private opening of Roger Dean's art exhibit at Image Makers Art on Main Street in Manayunk the night before the show with Roger Dean and special guests. Roger's exhibit opens to the public August 21st. Spend this weekend listening to 7 songs Superstar.
Yeah, I would describe myself as a draftsman long before I'd had the temerity to say I'm a painter. I'm much more confident with a pencil than anything else. It's funny, actually, somebody once tried to persuade me to work with a graphic block, and I said it can't keep up with me. They didn't know what I meant, but I'd finish a drawing, and then gradually this thing would sort of follow around on the TV screen, and it was impossible to work that way. The mark had to follow the tool, otherwise you get very lost and very confused.
Yes, sure.
I guess they're faster. I think the first school I went to was in Greece. My father was in the army. We were there at the time of the Second Civil War, which was in '48. And my recollection is, and certainly my mother's recollection is, that I hated it. And it never got better as far as I can remember. I got into art school and I started in 1960. 4 years at Canterbury, 3 years at the Royal College. And I was thrilled to do that because it was like an achievement, but I hadn't a clear idea what I was going to do. For some reason I still had that childhood dream that I was going to go and make bridges and dens and paint pictures. So I was sent off to do industrial design, which was fine because kind of what I thought I was doing anyway, and as it happened, life drawing was still part of the course, so it was fabulous chaos, but it was a bit humiliating, and it was kind of funny too, because we had this girl who was a model. I mean, she was young, beautiful, about 22, I think she was, and stark naked, and it was, died and gone to heaven. This can't be true. And there was that sense of unreality about it. These are my very early sketchbooks when I first went to college, and as I left school at 16, these These would be me 17, 18 years old. And these are my life drawing classes. And of course, we have the inevitable ladies. The model who, I suppose, impressed us all, she was about 22. You hardly see in my drawings because I think we were instructed to construct the figure out of shadow only, or just intersections of lines. So all these exercises mean that the drawings are less satisfactory than they might be. Anyway, this is from the life drawing class. Just about see there's a figure there. When I went to the Royal College, I had some really good advice, there was a teacher at Canterbury called Jerry Davis who was teaching us basically drawing. And I was given the advice that if I went to the Royal College, I should go apply to the furniture school because David Pye was such a good professor. This is Royal College of Art, and the main difference is that they're not art school sketchbook exercises. I'm not drawing flowers or things. These are much more based on ideas. So they're designs as much as drawings. When I went to the Royal College, I wanted to explore these ideas about architecture, which I was given the freedom to do. We have here the model of the house I did there, which is just downstairs, and it took me a long time to hack that out of plaster at college, but that was my college project. And the Royal College was fabulous because it gave me the time and the space to do that. I'm no longer doing the art school exercises. This is me playing with what I could do, what I could think up, and it was terrifically fun. It was like I was opening a door into another world, and it was my world, and I was exploring like mad. I can't believe I actually chose these colours. Actually, I love them. I'm not really apologetic for them at all. But a lot of, I guess the thing to say is that a lot of stuff came out of this book, a lot of album covers. This is the genesis of Relaya. And this became my logo on album covers for 30 years. This book was like a zoo of ideas, if you like. I caught them all in here.
Like every good story, there comes the dramatic moment when opportunity knocks for the aspiring artist. The trick is being able to recognise your opportunity when it arrives. Fortunately for Roger, it's an ability which he's always had in plenty.
When I left college, the first job I got was to design the interior of Ronnie Scott's Jazz Club. And my idea was to produce landscapes of seating, furniture as landscape, if you like. And they did. They got the idea, they got the results they wanted, but for me it was incredibly laid back. It was this kind of grey and it was flat plains, and I wanted to show them what it could have been. If only fate, inspiration, their courage had taken us there, I guess their resources. I was showing them these ideas. I said, we could have built this. It could have all been flexible. You could have sat any you wanted. These things were organic shapes that moved and changed as you sat on them. I'd already developed patents along those lines. So I was mad keen to show them what should have been, what could have been. And they loved it, yeah, but they came back and said, but, where's that picture with the demons? Yeah, that one. Can we use that as an album cover? Oh, okay. Yeah, why not? And from then I thought I got paid more for doing the album cover than I did for doing these. And it seemed to me what a fabulous way to show off ideas. I don't have to take my book around and show everybody. I can get it printed and everyone can see it. It was a chance to get involved in music, which was great fun, and a chance to show off in public. And although the first couple of album covers weren't architectural in theme, they very soon did become so. And I guess if somebody asked me to sum up the history of the imagery I used as album covers, the very first was for a band called Gun, and the album cover was called Race with the Devil. And in working on my architecture, I was thinking that I'm working very hard to create a sense of security and privacy within that building, and it needs a contrast. And if you like, wild street life is not the kind of contrast one wants. One wants something more elemental, more vast. And this first painting I did was as an icon, if you like, for something vast, organic and terrifying. The creative effort went into the painting, and I'd finished the painting, everything was going fine. I got all this text. And I didn't know how to call a typesetter or anything, so I sort of hand wrote it. So carefully fitted it in the whole thing, and I thought, oh God, they're going to notice. This is hand done. This isn't this isn't typeset at all. And I took it in, and they said, "Oh God, you've handwritten it. Cool." And then I was getting all kinds of people who commissioned me just to do the hand done lettering. I did a whole bunch of stuff for T-Rex, which was just the labels, just handwriting the labels. But it's funny, because at that time I had no idea how to go about doing it. I didn't train as a graphic designer, you see. Learnt that on the hoof as it. The one that really changed everything for me was Osibisa, and it went down very well. It went down well with the band, it went down well with the record company, and it went down incredibly well with the public. Peter Lederber, who was art director on a magazine called Oz, had just started a poster company called Big O Posters, and I went to him with it and a few others. He denies it now, but he did turn me down. He did say, no way. And Ron Ford, who was there as his in charge of sales, I think persuaded him to rethink it. And we sold enormous numbers of posters. Ramesses came to me with the idea. And Ramesses was such a strange, wild guy, amazing character, with an amazing story. But the only time really, or almost the only time, I actually thought, I like him, I like his idea, I will illustrate his idea. But I never felt it was like one of my images. It was his idea, and I just helped him out with that.
Roger's early career had been built largely on designing sleeves for jazz records, but the real mass market always lay in rock music. Although the jazz sleeves were paying the rent, the path to fame and fortune lay in a completely different direction. Roger took the bold decision to turn down any more offers from his cosy niche in the world of jazz, nice, and look to the world of rock. Now our tale really gets interesting, because this is where I come in.
I stopped doing the jazz covers, and I was basically trudging around the record companies and the bands with a portfolio, and I saw Phil Carson, who classic line to me was, I've only got two bands, Led Zeppelin and Yes, but as soon as one needs a cover, I'll call you, which he did, bless him.
Suddenly Roger offered us a kind of fresh, positive direction, and that logo was starting to get in shape, and that was going to become the centerpiece for Close to the Edge. I think for me, the Yes album, Fragile, Close to the Edge kind of trilogy was establishing the styles and the direction of Yes. And Roger was doing that visually. I guess we gave him lots of freedom, but also he had the opportunity, because I've always said to people that, we're the musicians and we need other great people to work for us. I don't design lights, stages, PA boxes, album sleeves. There's what Yes has achieved that and did terrifically well at in the 70s was having allegiance with, talented, committed people who did things that we didn't do. And that meant that there was more to Yes than just the musicians and the music. There was a lot of teamwork behind the scenes that brought originality, like the round stage, and brought originality like Roger's staging before that. It was all about having other people work with us who were a hell of a lot better doing the things they did than we could ever be.
Roger, this is Jackie.
Oh, hi. You're the person we're supposed to have waited for and didn't. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And where's your other friend has gone? Anne?
I don't know what happened to her. Anne's here too.
Oh, is she here?
You guys need to get someone here to police you or keep you all under control. I designed the logo after I'd finished Close to the Edge. And Close to the Edge was the second album I did for Yes. And it was, I didn't really like the logo I did for Fragile. And I thought if I work with these guys again, I better do a better logo. So I did it between albums. And when I showed it to them, they wanted just the logo on the front. So the front of Close to the Edge was a silver version of this. But this is the one for Tails. And the thing that was really nice for me about this is that the drawings for the original design and the original painting of this, which is tiny, it's only about 6 inches across, are in the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. So that one's got some street cred. What happened with Yes songs was it was a chance to start telling a story in pictures. The idea of the world breaking up and these little segments of the world, as it were, becoming spores and landing on another world and that becoming alive, as it were, from the seeds sent through space. That was a one-off story. What I do is I build a world where the Yes music seems to coexist very well. If I do anything that relates to the title, to the music, it's the title we work on. Strangely enough, I'd say most of Yes's titles are autobiographical in some degree. Fragile reflected the relationship within the band. Close to the Edge was, again, a descriptive of emotional status of the band. But I was making imagery around those ideas, the word ideas, not the music ideas.
This fragile world that Roger had drawn for us, it really looked like something. The band has to have a look. It might be very subtly placed, in its priorities, but certainly with the kind of music we were playing, we needed a look.
I think sometimes you can put an image and then put music and it works, but if you change the music or you change the image, it may still work, but it'll work in a different way. And I think the relationship between Yes, the imagery and the music was fortuitous for both of us. Tales was an interesting anomaly for me in that when Yes were doing their Far East tour, I went with them to Japan, and we spent a long time on a long flight, you know, going via Alaska to Tokyo. And I was talking to John about, I'd just done a book cover for John Mashal, who did View Over Atlantis, which was about patterns in the landscape. And I was talking to John about ley lines and about the sort of magical significance of certain rock formations and certain patterns in the landscape, dragon lines, the sequence of churches dedicated to St. Michael or other saints associated with dragons. And he became very enthusiastic about it, and I was very enthusiastic myself. So that was probably the only Yes album where there was a genuine dialogue with the band, and particularly with John, about the evolution of an idea. And Tales from Topographic Oceans worked for me in the sense that it had that Edgar Allan Poe type title, and yet at the same time it was about the mysteries of landscape.
After the topographic tour, it was time for me to say goodbye to Yes. Well, for the first time anyway. Roger had by now become closely identified with the band. His wonderful paintings played a huge part in getting the band noticed. They provided a complementary backdrop to the music, and as I went on my merry way, Roger moved on to the next challenge, Relayer.
I became fascinated by the Crusades, fascinated by the consequences as much as by the motivation for them. And in reading all these books, I don't know, I used to collect books on the Crusades, hundreds of them. I became particularly fascinated by the orders of chivalry that sprung out of them, the Templars and Hospitallers in particular. And the Templars are cited as being the beginning of all kinds of magical processes, from the Masons to whatever. Lots of strange books, lots of very strange books. And I was thinking of doing something like a Templar village, if you like. What would they do if they could do anything they wanted? And I just felt I'd really love to do my take on a castle.
I think the one that's maybe closest to my heart is been Relayer, because in a way, although the sleeve is not as powerful blues and reds, and you know, it's not powerful in that sense. It's powerful in its subtlety and its kind of organic granite sort of colouring that gives it, you know, in the midst all of this originality, it gives that particular album a very a much more thoughtful and less impressive, you know, in the colours, but a very thoughtful look.
A lot of things I do, the colour is very discreet, and Relayer is a classic example of using an incredibly limited palette, really. I worked on the background in watercolour, and just a very limited amount of watercolour too, just to keep it just as far back as possible. But although when it comes to colour, I'm playing it down till it's almost not there, the shapes are incredibly strong. I mean, that sort of forceful, organic upthrust of building is just a very powerful idea played right back when it comes to the rendering of it. And I push it back further by making the foreground jump out a bit, and I did that by the process of working in ink in the foreground and watercolour in the background.
Sunday, 5:19 p.m.
Hello, I'm calling for an invitation to meet Roger Dean 20th or 22nd My name is Arthur Davian.
Hi, my name is Linda Andrews, and I was interested in seeing Roger Dean on the 20th or the 22nd. I just want to see what we had to do if we just came and we could see him and get his autograph. I appreciate if you wanted to call me. It would be 215. Thank you. Bye.
I think my pictures remind me of Colorado. The titles are stunningly obvious. I never realised, because the Rocky Mountains sound so romantic.
Yes.
But when you get there, they weren't thinking romantic or poetic, they're thinking literal. Rocky Mountains.
Yes, yes.
Towns are called Boulder, Leadville, Silverville. Even the name Colorado is just Spanish for red rocks. I mean, it's everything.
Is it really? Is it?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and it's such a romantic place, and the names have such resonance. I mean, Aspen, it's just full of aspen. Anyway, Red Dragon.
Okay, Red Dragon. Well, that's great. That's perfect. Is it acrylic?
It's acrylic. I had lots of what I thought were great commercial images would make a great book, and I wrote in the end to maybe 17 or 18, I forget now, publishers, and they all turned me down. Basically, they couldn't understand why anyone would buy a picture book, and it was scary because I couldn't understand it. I was selling posters. I thought, you know, I was getting a really good reaction from the public through posters and cards and things. I thought the book must sell. It just must make sense. And my confidence was such that any time I got paid, I would spend money doing proofs of pages. And so I was incrementally building a book even before I got everything together. And it was costing me every spare penny I had, and quite a few, to be honest, that I didn't have. In the heyday, when my work was reaching its, if you like, its early peak, we weren't actually making any money. It was always being folded back into the business, and the business was always like a roll of the dice away from disaster. And I know from outside, people used to think I was leading the life of Riley, going to pop parties and driving a roller and all that kind of stuff, and it was never really like that. In the end, we published it ourselves. We set up our own company and we published it ourselves. It was finished in 75, I think it came out in the autumn of 75. And then suddenly, really by surprise, it appeared in the bestseller list at #1. You know, its first appearance was at #1. It's been incredibly influential. I mean, not only did we do other books, but all kinds of other publishers copied it. The book was cut up in the studios of Star Wars when they were making it. I mean, I never saw that, but I had all kinds of people who were in the studios who told me that, you know, my book was all around the studio when they were designing it. I mean, I guess it wrote a graphic menu for all kinds of images out of that era.
Our paths have crossed many times in the pursuit of the ultimate Yes record, allied to the best possible cover. We actually first met at the time of Fragile. We went on to do Close to the Edge, Yes songs and Tales from Topographic Oceans. Then I left. He stayed in the camp for Relayer, and when I came back for Going for the One, he left. When I left after Tomato, he came back to paint Drama, and then we both left. Then we both came back for Union, but then I left. He stayed for The Ladder, and now he's left, so maybe it's my turn to come back. Or maybe he's just avoiding me.
I was asked, actually, strangely enough, by one of their people who works on the fan club, and they said, doesn't this hurt you deeply that you're not involved all the time? I mean, shouldn't you be feeling like one of the band? And I said, well, actually, if anything makes me feel like one of the band, it's this endless chopping and changing, because I mean, that's a defining thing about Yes, unfortunately, is that, you know, you rarely get the same band 2 albums in a row. I guess I minded a little, not too much. I didn't mind enough to do anything to stay involved, otherwise I would have stayed involved. I feel that if I'm involved, I have to do it my way. And if that's good for them, and sometimes it is, that's great. And sometimes they want to do it their way, which, if it doesn't work for me, it doesn't.
Unfortunately, there's been a few occasions when we don't even use Roger. That's always against my grain, because not because I'm like semi-patriotic about Roger, it's just that I like the connection, I like the expertise and the product of those two marriages in art, you know, working together. So when it's somebody else for some reason, you know, I just keep, why? You know, why have we done this? You know, I mean, you know, Mercedes don't rush over to Ford and say, can you design our next car? You know, and I think we've got a lot of credibility and stability, you know, through many of the people we've worked with, you know, Clear Brothers Sound, Tate Towers, and Roger Dean. They've been like surrounding us, you know, with assistance and expertise all these years. So when it isn't, then it's somehow, you know, an even more radical version of us working together is suddenly we're not working together.
Although the Yes saga is important to Roger, and vice versa, other bands were also able to benefit from his unique talent. Uriah Heep were another British band who rose to prominence on the back of an album which featured a Roger Dean cover. Demons and Wizards was the first project which saw Roger and Uriah Heep working in collaboration. It was without doubt a fortuitous meeting, because Demons and Wizards is still regarded by many as the finest album in the long history of that band.
He was the wizard of 1,000 kings, and a chance to meet him one night wandering. He told me tales and he drank my wine, but me and my
I think, you know, Close to the Edge, Fragile, Union, if you look at those titles, in essence they're neutral. You know, it could be anything. And it gave me terrific freedom. But Magician's Birthday, Wizards and Demons, they rather pull you to something, don't they? I think I took an original take on it, but it wouldn't have been any sense me doing Flying Elephants for Magician's Birthday, I guess. I don't know, maybe it would have. But I think if they had gone to the extent of calling their album Magician's Birthday or Demons and Wizards, they had an idea they wanted to be picked up on. And I was willing to do that. I had ideas to explore in that direction, so it worked for me.
It was an interesting situation because we had the song The Wizard and we had the song Rainbow Demon, and so the concept title for the album was Demons and Wizards at that point. We were breaking some ground with our covers. I think previous covers had been a little bit obvious. You look at yourself as a great cover, but it was a relatively obvious cover, you know. So, but this was the first time we'd done something unique. Demons and Wizards was a unique cover, a great cover. One of the best, I think.
The Wizards and Demons was an odd cover for me, because it was a painted cover way back in the early 70s, when I would really describe my early work as they were very tight, and my discipline, I never did painting at art school, well, hardly any. What I studied and what I practiced and what I became was a draftsman. I was really good at drawing. That sounds like I'm showing off, but I drew.
Being the 25th anniversary, I felt that one of our strongest covers would be, you know, Demons and Wizards, you know, and that's the one that's always recognised and talked about as a cover, closely followed by Magician's Birthday. So I thought, well, I'll give Roger Dean a ring and just see what he was up to and what he was doing. So I went down there with Bernie, met Roger, and we said, you know, would you like to be part of these celebrations? And he said, sure, you know. So we said, well, do you have any artwork that we can that's finished that we can buy or we could use or whatever? And he said, oh no, I'll start a new one. And we went, fantastic, he's really got the spirit of it. And when he does these paintings, he's not like he paints on here like this. It's just like a wall, the canvas. And we visited there a few times and saw it. And we thought, oh yeah, this is fantastic. We really liked it. Had all these little trademarks in there, and we really enjoyed that cover. And we thought, well, this is nice. It's a nice way to cap the music as well, because everything is then being treated in the same spirit, which is great.
I think if anyone said, what's your masterpiece of your drawing period, I'd say Relaya or Asia Pyramid. But I switched in the early 80s to painting, really. And there was a couple of reasons for that. The first reason was that when I was doing the early work, Tales, Relaya, whatever, the painting, if you like, was a world, a window into a world. And I didn't want any clutter on the pane of glass, as it were. No technique had to show. I just wanted to go straight into that world and then explore the world. But two things happened to me. One is I really liked the idea of feeling it. I liked it to be an object. I liked that painting to be an object. And I liked, and I grew to like, three-dimensional quality of adding on layers of paint. And at the same time, my eyesight, was no longer as good, and that incredibly intricate stuff where you could enlarge it and enlarge it and enlarge it and the details still held, I not only lost interest in it, but physically I couldn't see to do that without glasses and magnifying glasses, and hey, give me a break. I went into painting, and the paintings, about the same time that CDs came along and this little teeny image, I went from doing pictures that size to pictures 6 foot by 4 foot, and sometimes 9 foot by 6 foot. So my pictures grew at the same time as the CDs shrunk them. But what I was really doing was painting. I was working directly with light. See, when you're working in pencil, you're dealing in form much more. But I wanted to work in light. And I just enjoyed it. I just loved all those layers of colour and things. And if you look into the shadow areas of Sea of Light, it's a mass of rainbow effects. It's just masses of colour. There's no one colour. I didn't paint it in one colour. It is literally a rainbow. The full spectrum of the rainbow is in there. And I love that. I love that zinginess of painting. And funnily enough, I still get people still ask me about it, about the airbrush technique in the background. There is none. It's all hand painted. That And in actual fact, if you could sit in front of the canvas, you wouldn't even ask the question, because it's obviously you can see the marks. But I guess when it's reduced, I guess it looks airbrushed, but it isn't. I just like the materialness of the painting. It wasn't a key to a door, it was the door. Floating rocks. I love them. For me, they give a fantastic sense of tranquility and peace, and I love that. I am actively looking for, if you like, a spiritual path in the paintings, and this was, if you like, a shortcut. The floating rocks. They meant a lot to me, actually. Perhaps I should have overdone it. I don't know. I keep coming back and just dying to do it. I'm not a big fan of just putting all kinds of strange things in. I like to hold back on that a lot. But the floating rocks, I don't know. They were there for me, That's something I really kept knocking on the door, and I just let them in.
Napoleon always used to ask one question of a new general: is he lucky? Now, Roger and Napoleon probably would have gotten along just fine, because in many ways Roger had become a bit of a genie of the lamp. Give him a bit of a rub and you might get lucky. As we've seen, so far his magic had worked fantastically for Yes, Budgie, Gentle Giant, Greenslade, Babe Ruth, T-Rex, Uriah Heep and a host of others, so any sensible musician setting out on a new career would have been extremely wise to contact Roger before he even played a note. My colleague Steve Howe always had the good sense to spot a winning formula.
I think that Roger's done a lot of great sleeves, like the first Asia sleeve was, in fact the second Asia sleeve was pretty impressive. But Roger's often come up with powerful ideas. A lot of his other work, like ABWH, it's a sensational sleeve. And actually, the symphonic music of Yes, Roger's had a lot of stabs not only with Yes.
One thing I said that I would never do. All from you when I was fall from grace. And I will wipe the smile right from my face.
The key for me was Steve, because Steve was one of the members of the band, and when he left Yes and joined Asia, I sort of went with them, but they were anxious not to look like Yes. And they tried lots of logos and lots of covers, and I just said to Steve one day, because I could see they were still struggling with it, I said, you know, you could go with an Asian dragon. I mean, that's nothing like Yes, and I could paint you one, and I could do you a logo that's nothing like Yes, because everyone associated the curvy lines with Yes. So I did them the pyramid and the dragon. That pyramid form sitting on the broad base. That's the design of the painting. It's the design of all the paintings I did for Asia in the early days. The pyramid, obviously, the robot was that form, and the dragon is that form. They all had that hand too, reaching out. In the case of the dragon, reaching out for wisdom. In the case of the eagle, going for its daily bread, if you like, the fish. And the robot too. The robot's search was for innocence, which was from the I Ching, which is what I threw when I was looking at the idea of a very abstract idea for a very hard-edged painting.
He doesn't come up with images easily. What I would say is that, you know, I mean, we spent an awful lot of time on discussing what image we were going to have. Yeah, and we came up with the idea of a dragon on the first Asia record, and I thought the first Asia image was very strong. You know, there's this dragon. It was Asia. It was 4 people, 4 letters. Very strong image, and we got on like a house on fire. We got on very well indeed, and well, I really enjoyed working with Roger. Yeah,
I like simplicity in my paintings. A lot of people who copy my work cram them. You know, they'll copy a landscape and they'll fill it full of goblins, or you know, it irritates me enough that they copy it, but then they kind of abuse it with that extra stuff. But I like paintings of mine that are intrinsically very simple but look very complex. A typical example of that is Rick Wakeman's Journey to the Centre of the Earth. A painting I call the Red Dragon, which was used on Steve's not necessarily acoustic album, and was also used on a game for Psygnosis Barbarian. I like painting that you know, when I'm in there, if I'm lucky, and fortunately I am very often, something happens, something is there that really grabs my attention in such a way that I really want I want the finished thing. I can't stop till I've got it, because there's something there I want, very materialistic in a sense. I want to possess that key to that idea. I want to explore that picture. And particularly with the Rick Wakeman one, you know, there's endless areas to explore. And it allows it, you know, it can go back and back. You can take a small corner and you can fight your way through that image into tiny little recesses, and it still stands up. But essentially it's a simple painting.
The relationship between the music and the images he creates has often been a source of fascination for Dean aficionados, although which comes first is a bit of a chicken and egg situation. The actual relationship is surprisingly uncomplicated.
The good thing about working with music is that it allowed me terrific freedom. In fact, I allowed myself the freedom to do what I wanted to do. I've got thousands of drawings in lots of sketchbooks, and if I lived for 1,000 years, I wouldn't do all the ones I've already wanted to. I already have sketched out and want to do. And whenever I start a painting, that fires off a lot more ideas. So I had a terrific amount of freedom. I was lucky I wasn't working in any other area, but not only did I have the freedom, I had an external nudge to go on and explore something different. So I had the freedom to do what I want, and I had the push to go to new places all the time. Show us somewhere else. Let's take us somewhere else. And the place I guess I really wanted to take people was that place that was a spiritual experience for me.
I love Morrill. He's a great artist. He's a great artist.
Big Roger Dean, big Yes fans. From way back when.
Yeah.
It's cool. Nice to see a lot of people with nothing but smiles on their faces.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is like, makes my year, my life.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh God, this is ego shattering. I mean, I'm an illustration major myself. Phenomenal.
As an artist, one explores enlightenment through the material world. You know, we make things that exist. They're not abstract. Unfortunately, in art, if you like, the material nature of us as people is dismissed as ungodly. I mean, it's an old concept in our culture that the material world is the work of the devil, and to be, if you like, seeking after God, you have to dismiss the material world. I think the opposite is really true. I think the material world, our environment, is something that is both sacred and spiritual, and the artist, in neglecting that, even if it's just in terms of addressing material things, is being driven by forces in our culture that are making a mistake. We do explore our spirituality through the material world. If you're saying to somebody, you know, this is a difficult place, this is a place where you have to, as it were, come to terms with yourself and explore, you want to make the door easy to open, I think. And so what I'm saying is, come in, the water's fine. But I'm doing it in a culture which doesn't like that. I'm doing it in a culture which feels that there has to be more pain before there is more reward.
As the years have rolled by, the original versions of Roger's paintings have increased in value from thousands of dollars to tens of thousands of dollars, and now into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Obviously, owning a Roger Dean original is no longer a possibility for most of us, or any of us. But Roger has come up with his own solution.
Getting an increasing number of people asking for prints, and at the same time I hadn't decided to sell paintings. I didn't really want to, so my work wasn't available, and over the years, 20 years since they first appeared as posters, a lot of the people who wanted to buy them didn't want some flimsy poster stuck to the wall. They wanted something they could frame. The real difference between this and a poster is just a reproduction. I'm not involved. There's a transparency taken of the painting, and the printer goes off and makes a poster from it. It's just a reproduction. This, I'm involved at each stage. I had to do a different drawing for every colour, and there is 35, 40 drawings in total. And unlike a painting where you put it down, but if it's in the wrong place, well, you can live with it or you can change it. This all had to sync. So besides doing an enormous amount of work on it, every single sheet had to be absolutely in sync with its predecessor. But you can see, you know, that there is a picture that's looking sort of complete, and you can see how they all merge in. Well, these are just 2 sheets. In total, if I put them all down, it would be black, because we've covered every single square inch of the whole thing, and even the white areas came on the film as black. But this is just 2 out of, as I say, about 35 plus. So after all the drawing and making the 30 or 40 screens and then the printing, this is the finished print. And you can see here, for example, how much variety in texture there is in what was basically one pull of the screen, one colour. But the transparency of the ink, and you just bring out so much richness in it. The advantage of redoing it as a print meant that I was able to go back into the rocks, for example, and put a great deal more detail and discipline into the working of them than I did in the original thing. And I think actually there's a lot more colour in this than there is in the original. I had a chance to revisit the fish, and I just think altogether that the print's an excellent thing. I love it. The Dragon's Garden was based on the painting that I did for the Pink Floyd symphonic album. And the big deal here for me was that the original painting was based on a very loose watercolour, and I thought I would try to do exactly the same thing with the prints. And it meant that the design of print is quite different to the painting, although the feel is very much the same. But the key here was getting this very wet colour, watercolour effect into the background, and picking up all the detail, which we were very fortunate in managing to do. We've captured a lot of that, and it does give it the look of a very wet watercolour painting of a very wet landscape. All of these, the highlight in the eye of the dragon was actually printed, but we've got a proof here where that has not been done. So I'm going to finish it by hand. 10 of these prints are hand finished, but they're not. It's not just the highlight in the eye. Some of them are completely, radically repainted. Anyway, for the dragon, this is him coming to life. There you go. One dragon with a highlight in his eye. So it's quite an exciting and intriguing process for me. The print process in itself is exciting. It's not just a chance of getting the pictures, but it does mean that I can sell them and keep them, which is something I couldn't do before. And in a way, the fact that they're hand signed is big deal, but what it means to me, it's like saying, okay, this works, sign off on it. This one doesn't, tear it up.
I value my friendship with Roger. So, you know, we kick ideas around. Sometimes we just talk about things that we hope we might do one day. And I think that's one of the great things about friendships. They're not always about reality. They can be about fantasy too, because I think we all need fantasy. We all need to, you know, have dreams that are almost unreachable, almost, you know, beyond reach. But, you know, keep having them, and by God, surprise yourself, you'll be doing it.
I guess one day I'll do that. I'll get a name and say that's what it is. In actual fact, I think of it as landscape painting. It's landscape painting. I mean, what I'm doing is I'm painting places where I want to take people where they can't go any other way.
So spoke the wizard in his mountain home. The vision of his wisdom means we'll never be alone. And I will dream of my magic nights and the million silver stars that guide me with their light. Everybody, yeah.